Welcome to the Big Show. I am Paul Zeise of the Post-Gazette Big Show. We do it every single day. We try and cover lots of different things. And, of course, generally we talk a lot about the Steelers. And, well, why not talk about the Steelers again today? Because the Steelers are always fresh on our minds. We are in a place right now where everybody seems to be in a holding pattern. But the more that it drags out, for lack of a better word, it really looks to me, if you read the tea leaves, like Aaron Rodgers is basically deciding between playing for the Steelers or retiring. I just think that's his two choices now. I know that the Giants are still involved, but now they're involved with trying to get Russell Wilson involved in maybe that Russell Wilson is going to be their guy. I know Jeremy Fowler had a report the other day where Jeremy Fowler said that he thought that basically Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers were reasonably close. He still thinks that there's a chance it could be Russell Wilson at the end of the day. I've told you my thoughts on that. I don't really believe that Russell Wilson could come back here. I mean, the way that the Steelers have treated him, I don't understand why he would want to come back here. And the other part of it is it's been pretty clear to me that he's a guy they are really, really going. I'm not sure what it's going to take, but the bottom line is it sounds like they have a deal in place. They know what they're getting involved in terms of money, and they understand that Aaron Rodgers is taking his time, and they're okay with that, and they're okay with the fact that he's a guy who they want. Apparently, the head coach wants him. So I think one of the most important things that happened over the weekend, or at least Friday, was that Aaron Rodgers actually visited the Steelers. Didn't necessarily leave with a deal in place other than the deal that they've already had for him. But it seems like it's pretty clear to me that they wanted him, and he's their guy. So, what do we make of the meeting on Saturday? What do we make with the meeting on a Friday with him and with the Steelers? Well, I would say this. From everything that we've been told and everything that's happened, it seems pretty clear to me that it's going to be a situation of where he's got to decide if he wants to play. I mean, the meeting was positive. The meeting was exactly the way you wanted it to be. And the Steelers were so, impressed by him and by the opportunity to sit down and talk with him that they actually canceled some of their, pro days. I guess Michigan had their pro day on Friday, and the Steelers stayed back because they wanted to meet with Aaron Rodgers. So it's cool to me, really, in many ways, because I think what happens is Aaron Rodgers is obviously their guy. And the question that has been asked a bunch, and we're going to, get into it a little bit, is the idea that Aaron Rodgers, does he fit with what they're looking for? And would he fit with Arthur Smith? I don't think there's anything that I've seen, at least, that suggests he wouldn't fit with Arthur Smith. Because here's the thing: if you're hiring somebody if you're hiring somebody like Aaron Rodgers, who's a veteran and all that other stuff, I don't think there's any way in the world you're bringing him here if you're not going to tailor whatever it is that you do to try and fit in what, with what he wants to do. period. So it's really, to me, not necessarily a game of where we're trying to figure out, oh, well, can he, get the job done? Is he, playing around with the Steelers? Is he? I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's now down to, does he want to play or does he not want to play? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. Does he want to play or doesn't he want to play? I think, honestly, a guy like Aaron Rodgers and a veteran like Arthur Smith, they'll sit down, they'll figure out what it is that Aaron Rodgers really wants in terms of the offense, how he wants to play the offense, and all that other good stuff. And I think at the end of the day, they're going to figure out how to make it work, no matter what. They're going to figure out how to make it work. And so I think that, you look at Arthur Smith's offense, you look at the fact that they added somebody like DK Metcalf, and honestly, I think that Arthur Smith is going to tailor, some of what he's doing on offense to the fact that the Steelers now have two big play receivers to try and keep happy. Sure, he'll still do the things he does in terms of trying to get the running game going, and that comes from the head coach. But I can't imagine you go out and sign a guy like DK Metcalf if you're not going to use him. And if you're not going to use him the right way, which is, I think, one of the reasons why they are basically in a place where they're willing to wait to see about Aaron Rodgers, because I think they want to figure it out. If he's going to be their guy, it changes their team completely, I think, at least in their mind. And I think that's really what it is that is holding this whole thing up. It's not necessarily anything about, Aaron Rodgers being a prima donna. I think he's legitimately deciding if he wants to play or not. I've heard all kinds of conspiracies that he wants to wait. I guess Pat McAfee is having some sort of big, blowout event or something. I don't even know I don't think that's the case, really. I think it's a matter of, does he want to play or does he want to retire? And if he wants to play, I think he's going to play with the Steelers because it makes the most sense for him. So to me, him and Arthur Smith, I've heard a lot of people asking questions about whether or not I think he can fit in with what Arthur Smith wants him to do. My answer is yes, I do. Because I don't think you bring a guy like that into the mix unless you're legitimately trying to put together some sort of an offense that works for what what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. So, I think that's just important to note that, I know people are really, really in a place where they're really nervous because they feel like, well, what's going to happen at the quarterback spot? I don't get the sense that the Steelers are actually that nervous about it. I just don't. Because I think that the reality of the situation is that they are in a place right now where they know that either they go with Aaron Rodgers and they try and get him to a place where they can win games with him and they give themselves a chance to make a run in the playoffs, or, and the flip side of it is, they go with Mason Rudolph, and if he's not good enough, well, if he's not good enough, then they're okay with it. Because it's one of those things where they say, okay, they're not good enough. Next year, we're going to have to draft a quarterback. That's what it comes down to. Next year, they'll have to draft a quarterback, and if they do, then they'll be okay with that. And I think you should be okay with it too. I think one of the things that's so strange about Steeler fans, honestly, is that there's such a fear of having a really bad day, like a bad season. And it's kind of like, well, why? Why are we so afraid of that? Because to me, it's always going to be a situation of where if you have a bad season, you have an opportunity to draft a guy who can help you then go ahead and have really good seasons. So I think it's, it's always one of those catch-22s where we basically want to sit here and say, well, he's got to do this or he's got to do that. He doesn't necessarily have to do any of that. And the Steelers, to me, understand this. They're at a place where they basically say, we're okay. We're in a good place. And if we're in a good place, then guess what? We're going to be able to do whatever it is that we do from a standpoint of we can then maybe plan for next year and beyond, and that's not to say that we're going to sit here and the Steelers are going to be happy with basically going out and having a bad season. But I don't think they're nearly as afraid of it as some people are. And that's what I would always tell you. You have to make sure that you look at what are the Steelers really trying to do here. So, is Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers, are they compatible? Yeah, I think so. Because I don't think there's anybody that understands it better than the Steelers that, hey, if we bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers, we're trying to win. And if we're not able to, if we're bringing him in because we're trying to win, well, then the flip side of that is we need to do everything in our power to make sure he has everything that he needs to be a winning quarterback here. And I think that's where we're at. So it's important to remain that. It's important to remain, optimistic. And if you're somebody who doesn't really want Aaron Rodgers, I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure why you wouldn't want him. I think he's a good quarterback. And I think he's a guy who is absolutely going to be able to help the Steelers win football games next year. Or next season, I should say, to be more accurate. Is he going to be somebody that is the Aaron Rodgers of 7 or 8 years ago? No, probably not. But I think he'll be better than what you're looking at right now in terms of the Steelers and who they have and who they've had actually the last 3 or 4 years. I read something today, and I think it might be true. There are people that are saying, well, you know what? The thing about Aaron Rodgers that makes a lot of sense is that he's better than any quarterback they've had since Ben Roethlisberger was, before his surgery and everything, before his arm kind of went south. And if you think about the guys they've had playing quarterbacks, I would probably agree with that. Because I think that, honestly, Aaron Rodgers is a guy who has a chance to maybe do some of the things he did at the end of last season when he was clearly, healthier and everything else. And if he does that here, I think he's got a shot. So we'll see what happens. But I can't imagine, honestly, any scenario where he doesn't fit what Arthur Smith is wanting him to do. Because I think if he comes, him and Arthur Smith will sit down and they'll kind of talk about what part of the playbook they really like and what works for Aaron Rodgers. Because that's how you do things. And that's what I would tell you is always the case, in my mind at least, is that the Steelers are going to do things the right way. So it is important to note that there's a lot of different ways that you can go about looking at this thing. But I honestly think if you look at Aaron Rodgers and you kind of look at what he's capable of doing and how good he is, I mean, to me, they're not going to bring him here if they're not serious. And if they're serious, they're going to do the things he is going to ask them to do to make it so that he fits into what they're looking for. I don't necessarily think it's a situation of where, he's going to demand things, but it only makes sense, in my mind at least. It only makes sense that if the Steelers are bringing him here, they are really, really, really serious. And that's, what I would tell you. I look at people I think are looking at it the wrong way. Maybe he doesn't have what he used to have. That's always a possibility as well. but I think that he's going to be fine if he comes here to the Steelers. Now, it's interesting. Early on, the Steelers, you know what? They were probably more active than you think when it comes to going out and trying to fill their roster. And I think that when you look at what they've done so far, it's gotten quiet because I think most of the top guys are off the board. But I don't know how you could be upset about what the Steelers have done to this point, because they've made themselves better in the areas they needed to get better. They've added depth. They've added a lot of different players, I think, that are going to, be guys that help them win. And that's what it's going to come down to, is that if you get better incrementally in the other areas, if Aaron Rodgers comes, that's great. If he doesn't come, you're still in a pretty good place because you've got Mason Rudolph, period. And I think that's where we are right now. The Steelers, to me, are in a situation where they're not in a bad place at all. I think that when you look at what they have, if they have a good draft, you have to ask yourself this. Are they better? Are they better than they were last year? Are they in a better place than they were last year? Are they in a much better situation than they were last year? And if they were, then to me, I think it's a good situation for the Steelers to worry then about, okay, if we go forward and look through, what's next. Next is the draft. Next is maybe adding one or two more depth pieces. And then, of course, maybe, next is also adding your quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. Again, I think the key for me, at least, did they get better this offseason? And I think they did. I really do. I think when you look at what they've been able to accomplish in terms of going out and signing guys, I'll be honest with you. I can't think of a better place. I can't think of the Steelers being in a better place than they've been, probably where they are right now. And I think that's the key. That's always the key to me. Did you get better? They've gotten better. They've made the team around the quarterback better. And that's important to me, because I think it gives them a chance. An outside chance. We'll see what happens, but, that's where the Steelers are at. Now then, the game's always on at Archie's. Get down to Archie's on Carson Street, Archie's home of 80-cent wings, Monday through Thursday. Home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich. So get down to Archie's and enjoy good meal and everything else that you're looking for from Archie's. On Carson Street, tell Archie I said hello when you get there. Now, let's move to the Pirates. The Pirates open up this week on Thursday. It's their first game. It's not a home game. Their opener is next Friday against the Yankees, but they play this week against the Marlins in Tampa down in Florida. I look at what they've done, and quite frankly, unlike the Steelers, it's kind of underwhelming. It's kind of really sort of underwhelming, because I don't know that they're better than they were last year at this time. The additions they made, I just don't know that they're really going to change the team completely all that much. I think it's the same team that it was with maybe one other player. Tommy Pham is going to be a guy who starts, for better or worse, and probably is a guy that is going to be in left field for most of the days, unless he proves that he can't handle it or can't, hit. Okay. Does that make you better? Now you've moved Brian Reynolds to right. Does that make you better? I don't know. I mean, your outfield is now O'Neal Cruz, Brian Reynolds, and Tommy Pham. I just don't know that that's better than what it was. Your infield is probably going to be Joey Bart at catcher, Nick Gonzalez at second, Brian Hayes at third, Isaiah Kiner Falefa at short. And I am just not all that impressed by that. And then we're talking about now this new thing with Endy Rodriguez playing first for a while. Man, that's not going to be a situation that I think is really a winning team that's a contender. But what's really troubling is they didn't make their bench any better. Right now, looking at where they're at, okay? Looking at where they're at, you're looking at a bench of Jared Triolo, who's a good defensive player that doesn't really hit. Adam Frazier, who's just not very good. I don't even know what he brings to the table. Ji-Hwan Bae, who I guess if you get people on base, he can be a good pinch runner because he's fast. And Jack Suwinski. That's the one guy that can hit the ball out of the park. He's got a little power. You know, he's a good left-handed bat. I from the standpoint of he's got power from the left side. I get all that. But is this team really better? I just don't think they are. I don't think they're better. That's as disappointing as, of an offseason as I can remember any team having. And, there's all these conflicting reports about how much money they have and don't have and all that other good stuff. I'll be honest with you. I just don't know if they are a better team than they were last year. I know that there's a lot that we're banking on when it comes to, I know there's a better last year. They were, they're banking on, Paul Skeens getting better, and they're banking on Brian Hayes being healthier and all the other stuff. I'll be honest with you. This needed to be an offseason where they decided to basically go out and get some guys to make them better. If nothing else, and I know that what their, financial situation is, but if nothing else, make your bench better. I mean, Jack Suwinski, okay, good. What if there's a righty on the mound late? I'm sorry, what if there's a lefty on the mound late? You're probably going to Triolo, who is not a good hitter. So, as much as I want to be optimistic and be excited or whatever about the Pirates, it's just not there. It really isn't. Because at the end of the day, I just don't think they've made themselves better than they were last year. And now, and this to me is probably a very telltale sign. Now they're talking about Carmen Mlodzinski being in the starting rotation. What happened to Bubba Chandler? What happened to, all these other guys they had? What happened to any of those guys? Is Mlodzinski, going to be short-term? Is Jared Jones' injury a short-term thing? Is it a long-term thing? I don't know. But if he's out for any amount of time, and you're going to continue to run Carmen Mlodzinski out there every fifth day with this rotation, I don't know what the argument that you could make that you've made yourself better is. What is the argument? Skeens is a little better. Mitch Keller is Mitch Keller. He's the guy that is sort of Mitch Keller. He's, I don't know that he's, a superstar, but he's got some good things that he does, obviously. But the reality is I just don't know if you're better at this point. You know what you'll get out of Keller. You probably know what you'll get out of Skeens. The rest of your rotation, you know what? I liked them a lot better when they were 3, 4, 5 as opposed to 2, 3, or, 3, 4. I'm sorry. I liked them a lot better when they were 4, 5 as opposed to 3 and 4. So to me, looking what the Pirates did in this offseason, I'm not sure what the argument is that they're a better team than they were last season. That's going to be the problem. And I think that's going to be, the issue I have. And if this is a team that doesn't get better, if they're another 75, 76 win team in year 6, then what are we talking about here? I'm not sure if we're talking about anything good. If they win 75, 76, 76, 70, 75 kind of games, if they're very similar to last year, then this offseason was a disaster. I'm willing to sit here and say, well, let's see what happens before we call it a disaster. But from where I sit, I don't know that they've made themselves better, period. So we'll see how it goes. And, obviously it gets started on Thursday. Then we have the Penguins, who now have won, 5 out of 8 or something like that. They got a loser point yesterday. I mean, I'm glad they're playing better, but aren't they sort of screwing themselves for the draft? I'm not saying you tank, but it can't be better, in my mind at least, if you are telling me that, you're not necessarily putting yourself in position. If you're putting yourself in position to draft really high, especially considering how many draft choices you have, well, that's not bad. But this is a team that seems to be in purgatory, and they want to stay in purgatory. That's what's troubling about the Penguins. It's nice that they're winning some games and they're playing better and you don't want to tank, but good Lord. Especially if you keep collecting points here, down the stretch in the last 10 games you have. Are you really doing what's best for your franchise going forward? I don't know what the answer is, but it doesn't seem like they're doing the right things. Again, I'm not saying tank. I'm saying trying to figure out, what guys are capable of is important. But, man, they keep winning games, and they get to a point where they're outside of the top 3 or 4 picks. I don't know if that's a good thing either. So, the Penguins have played better of late. Tristan Jarry's been better of late. But while it's a nice little story, the reality is I just don't know if they're actually going to make themselves better in the future. Today was the first day of the transfer portal, which tells you how dumb the NCAA is. The NCAA tournament's still going on. And we've got guys, I saw a guy from Michigan who left. Michigan is still in the tournament. But all of these guys now, the portal season is started, so we're going to see more and more of that, I think. Unfortunately, I think we're going to see more and more of that, where guys that are still playing are in the transfer portal. As for Pitt, they need to hit the transfer portal really hard right now. A, they need more guys than just one to leave. And 2, I'll be honest with you, they need to go out and find players because I don't think they're in a good place right now. People are upset about the NCAA tournament because it's all chalk, essentially. Four conferences basically have every team in the Sweet 16. And of course, I went one step further. If you look at the women's tournament, basically tonight, Connecticut plays South Dakota State. The winner of that game will be the only team in the men's and the women's field out of 32 that are outside of the Power Four. And I think part of the problem is this. Very simple. And we saw it today with Robert Morris lost their best player. Great season, feeling good about things, all that other good stuff. And guess what? Their best player is leaving, and he won't be the only one because there's money to be made. And I think one of the things and one of the reasons we're seeing the tournament do what's going on right now, and I think it'll be even worse as we go forward, the best players use these smaller conference teams as their farm system. And so now all of these major conference teams, on top of having some of the best players that are coming into college from a recruiting standpoint, they also have all the 23, 24, 25-year-olds who have proven they can play. Those guys used to be, the mid-majors edge is the fact that, hey, we've got 24 and 25-year-olds and we can play against 18-year-olds. Well, that's not necessarily the case right now. And so I'm not going to react to 1 year where this happens, but I'll be honest with you, you should pay attention the next couple of years because I feel like it's going to be the norm where the best teams are the ones that get through to the Sweet 16 because now they've got the old guys just like the mid-majors used to. So that's basically where we're at with it. All right, we'll do it again tomorrow. Enjoy your day. Have a good time and stay out of trouble. I'm Paul Zeise. It's The Big Show. Good night.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.